everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today I am very excited because it is December, which means next month is January, which means next month is a new year. Thank fucking God. I don't know about you, but this year has been a hot mess for me. And my favorite part about a new year is going to surprise no one, which is goal setting. Now, before I dish out my tips to set amazing, incredible, show-stopping goals for 2022, let me just remind you that you should not just set yearly goals. I believe this is a point. Honestly, I don't remember. This script is from a while ago. I'm filming on the fly. Yes, that's point number 9. That was a sneak peek into point number 9. Without further ado, let's go back to point number 1. Number 1 is to be vague. This might sound counterproductive. However, I have found in my personal experience that very specific New Year's goals are a recipe for disaster. However, there is a bit of not a science, but there's I think that you need to have a good balance between being vague and being specific. So for example, let's take writing. The goal writing every day is very specific in my opinion. A little too specific. However, the goal to write something is very, very vague and probably not a very good goal. That's not even a goal really, it's just like a thing that you say, but how is that a goal? Like, how do you quantify that? How do you know that you wrote something? You know what I mean? Doesn't make sense. So, aim for something in between. So, for example, one of my writing goals for 2022 is to finish the first draft of The Grindelwald Witch, previously known as Smoke and Ashes, by the way. Number 2, 2 goals for 20 goals. This is ultimately a judgment call, but before you do any type of goal setting, sit down with yourself. That sounds weird. But sit down with yourself and figure out how many goals you want to have. And I'm not saying you need to pick a certain number, like, I want to have 13 goals this year. I don't know why I said it in that voice. What I'm saying is figure out a general range. So for example, for me, I like to have anywhere between 10 and 20 goals for the new year. Personally, because I have a lot of different aspects of my life that I set goals for in general, and I usually have more than one goal for each category. This range of goals works really well for me. Although sometimes I have less goals than this, sometimes I even have more. It really just depends on the year and my goals for the year and what my goals are, because this year I have a lot of really ambitious goals, so I have less goals, believe it or not, than I usually do. And I will be talking about my goals for the new year, I believe sometime next month. If you're an experienced goal setter and you know what works for you, just do whatever the hell works for you. However, I'm sure a good amount of people watching this video are like, well, that's great, but I don't know how many goals I need to set, so what the fuck should I do? And personally, I think that it's a lot easier to start out with a couple goals and possibly expand those later. So I would recommend just to set a few, maybe set 3 or 5 goals for the new year. And I think this is partly because a lot of people, their first time setting goals for a new year, kind of overestimate how much time they actually have in a year. Don't get me wrong, you can get a lot of shit done in a year, but still be realistic. For example, if you have a full-time job, it's probably not realistic to start the draft of a new book, edit that draft, and publish it all in a year. Because you're working 40 hours a week. How the fuck do you expect to do that? And if you're new to goal setting, that doesn't mean that you can't set a lot of goals. It just means to try and be realistic with yourself and try to reel things back in a little bit, you know what I mean? My next point, number 3, is life buckets. I'm actually going to be referring to my phone for this because I have a lot of notes and I don't want to forget anything. So the concept of life buckets actually comes from Rowena Tazai, I hope I'm saying her name right. I'm going to go ahead and link the video I'm talking about in the description. Little heads up, I am filming this video in November and Rowena hasn't come out with any content for the new year because I believe she usually does this in December. So this is her video from last year. I just want to put it out there that this is going to be an older video of hers, but I used her method last year for my goal setting and I'm going to be using it this year and I highly recommend it, so I'm still going to go ahead and link the video. So essentially the concept of these life buckets is just that we all have different things that we value. We all have different things that are important to us. So by selecting these life buckets, you can kind of figure out how you want to focus your time this year, and I think that is an amazing concept, especially when you're new at goal setting and you're not exactly sure what goals to set or what areas of your life you want to improve. I think that her exercise is phenomenal. And just to give you some examples, Rowena mentions the life buckets of health/nutrition, mental health, family, relationships, spirituality, finance, work, career slash school, creativity, community slash giving, and personal growth. Like I said before, by kind of trying to reflect and just analyze what's really important to you is super, super helpful in making your goals for the new year. And I would highly recommend that you do this exercise. Like I said, it's been super helpful for me. And for example, for 2022, the exercise that I kind of did for it, picked spirituality, creativity, and community slash giving in that exact order, and that helped me a ton to kind of figure out how I want to improve my life in those areas and thus make goals to help me improve my life. I also think that if you want to make categories for your goals like I do, so for example, my categories for goals are, I believe, spirituality, academic, personal, writing, author platform, and reading. I have 6 categories usually. And if you're not sure what kind of categories you want to include for your goal setting, doing this life bucket exercise can help a lot with that, I think. Next, number 4 is to do some reflecting on 2021. As you can probably tell by this point, I am a really big fan of reflecting. I think reflections are a fantastic way to improve your life in general and, of course, set goals. I'm about to get really personal here for a second, but I suffer from very, very big memory loss. So for those of you who don't know, I'm currently 17 and I don't remember literally anything aside from like maybe 3 or 4 memories before the age of like 15, 14-ish. So yeah, I suffer from really bad memory loss, and even like those years that I do have a very good amount of memories, but even so, I have a lot more gaps in my memory than what's considered to be normal, and because of this, I struggle a lot to do yearly reflections because it's just too big of a time, and for me, I have ADHD, and I kind of struggle to wrap my brain around certain time lapses. Time in general is a very difficult concept for me, honestly, like between the kind of time skips in my mind and in my memory, and I have a very like morphed like view how much time that I have. Like it's just time in general is just very hard for me personally, which is why I've struggled a lot with time management in recent years actually, because just the way that I view time is just very weird. Anyways, I'm telling you all of this because some people don't like doing yearly reflections, and I think that's because some people genuinely, like me, don't really remember everything that happened throughout the year, which is why I would encourage you to do reflections throughout the year. Now, obviously, because it's the end of the year, you can't exactly go back in time, but I'm mentioning this point for next year in case you want to do this. And personally, the way I do it is I do a lot of reflections. So I do very small reflections every week, and then I also do some reflections every month and a quarter. But obviously, like I said, if you're watching this video, you're like, okay, that's great, but I need to reflect for the year. So I went ahead and I wrote down some questions that I think could be really helpful for anyone who wants to reflect on 2021. Number 1, what went well in 2021? Number 2, what didn't go well? Number 3, what made you feel positive emotions this year? Happiness, joy, relief, etc. Made you feel negative emotions in 2021? Stress, anxiety, etc. Of all the things that didn't go well in 2021 or that made you feel badly, how could you change these things? Could you have a different outlook? Could you ask for help? Could you change your habits, etc.? Can you change your life to make yourself happier in 2022? What does your ideal year look like? What's preventing you from making this a reality? These are just some of the questions that you could ask yourself. Of course, if you did any other sorts of reflections this year, or if you regularly journal, this is a great time to reference all of that and just kind of see almost the trends. With my reflections, I like to look a lot for any trends that I see. So like when I look at the negative things that happen, do I see a trend in those, and is there something that I can do to make my life happier? Next, number 5, what do you want to do this year? I think this is probably one of the most important things that you need to think about, but I also think it's something that is, interestingly enough, kind of glossed over. I think a lot of people focus on their needs. What do they need to do this year? And while I do concede that that is important, I think that what you want to do this year is equally, if not more important. So truly ask yourself, what do you want to do this year? If you're on my channel, you're probably a writer, reader, or both. So if you're a writer, you probably want to write this year, right? So what exactly do you want to work on? Are you starting a new project? If so, maybe you want to finish draft 1 of your novel. If you're still stuck and not sure what you want to do, consider what goals you made in 2021. These could be yearly goals, and some of these might carry over into the new year, either because you weren't able to achieve them or because they kind of carry over seamlessly. So for example, let's say your goal for 2021 was to finish the first draft of your novel. So then maybe your goal for 2022 is to edit your draft. You can also consider a quick brain dump. So basically what you can do is set a timer for 10 minutes, get your laptop or get a pen and paper, and write down every single thing that you could think of that you could do this year. It doesn't matter if these are feasible or not. It doesn't matter if you would never in a million years actually do this. Literally, none of that matters. Turn that part of your brain off that tells you you can't do that. You don't have time for this. You don't actually like this. Just turn all of that off and focus on what you could do this year or what you would like to do. And just write that out and look at what you have, and you'll probably find some gems in there. And the last thing that you want to consider when what you want to do this year is something that I'm sure everyone watching this has done, which is think about any time you said, hey, I would love to do this, but blank. Maybe you said because you didn't have the time, maybe, well, that's probably the main reason, let's be real. Really just consider the things that you've wanted to do before but just haven't made time for, and perhaps that. Next, number 7, the step. And next we have number 7, the step that you've been waiting for, which is number 7, set your goals. This is the funnest part because you finally get to take all of your reflecting and all of your ideas and make your actual goals. You can make these goals on whatever platform you choose. I personally make mine on Trello, and then I transferred them to a bunch of different places so I could reference them throughout the new year. When you're making your goals, really just consider everything that we've done so far. Consider everything that you've reflected. Think about all of these trends and the reflections that you've done and what you've thought about what you really want to do this year and make them into goals. And again, I recommend to not be super specific, but also don't be too vague to the point where you don't even know what this goal is or how you could track it throughout the year. And I also like to try and make sure that every goal that I have for the new year, I can easily break into quarterly goals so that I can achieve the goal by the end of the year. Next tip for you is number 8, which is to have some buffer time. I recommend for you to have at least a week, preferably more, to really think over these goals that you've made and analyze if this is what you want, essentially. I think this is really helpful because I just think that it's important to really reflect over if these are the goals that you really want for the new year. And I think that everyone has their own kind of philosophy around if you should change your New Year's goals or not, and again, that's completely up to you. But unless something happened that literally like makes a goal impossible, for me, my goals, I never change a New Year's goal. What happens with my New Year's goals is sometimes in January I will add a goal or two, but I don't let myself take any away. Again, this is going to depend on you and your goal setting process, but you also might want to consider what policy you're going to have with yourself about taking away or adding goals once you've made your list. Lastly, tip number 9, which I literally mentioned at the start of this video, is number 9, set more than New Year's goals. Listen, New Year's goals are fantastic. They give you direction for the year and they can help a lot with setting other goals. But you need those other goals because otherwise, your New Year's goals are probably going to be way too overwhelming for you. Take the goal to write a book, for example. A book is at least 40,000 words, often a lot longer than that. I'm writing an epic fantasy novel, and I am literally terrified to find out how long this first draft ends up being, considering the fact that I'm already at 30,000 words, nearly a full novel, and I'm not even 5 chapters in. How many other goals you make aside from New Year's goals is completely up to you, and it's really going to depend on your goal setting process and what you like. Personally, I set yearly goals, obviously, and I also have quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily goals. Some of those are more like tasks, but whatever. I call them all goals just for the sake of simpleness, I guess. Regardless of what other goals you set, I do think it's really important to set more than just New Year's goals to help make sure that you achieve your goals in the new year. With that being said, that's all I have for you guys today. I actually got through these points a lot easier than last time. I had to film this video again because the quality of my last video sucked. But honestly, 30 minutes for all these tips, not bad, not bad. So if you enjoyed today's video, please give it a big thumbs up and hit that big red subscribe button down below and turn those post notifications so that you, yes, you know every time that I upload. I upload every Tuesday and every other Thursday, so subscribe so you don't miss it. I talk about writing advice, I talk about goal setting, I talk about books. Being said, that's all I got for you today. I'm out of breath, so I'm gonna go, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!